Heavenly Father, I pray for everyone watching this video right now. May you bless them with peace, joy, and breakthroughs in their lives. Amen. Hello, my wonderful family. I am so glad and grateful to have you here with me today. Your support means the world, and I truly don't take it for granted. Before we dive into today's powerful story, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment below to share your thoughts, and of course, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update from this channel. I trusted you with the most precious thing in my world. The words came out as barely a whisper, but Elena knew they carried the weight of 3 years of lies crashing down between them. She stood in the doorway of 8-year-old Lily's bedroom, watching Michael Sterling stare at the adoption papers in his trembling hands. Papers that proved everything he thought he knew about his daughter's nanny was a carefully constructed deception. Michael, please let me explain. Explain? His voice was hollow, devastated. Elena, these papers show that you've been getting reports about Lily's development, her health, her emotional state. They show that someone has been paying you to monitor my daughter for 3 years. Elena felt her heart breaking as she watched the man she'd fallen impossibly in love with process the betrayal. The adoption papers he'd found in her room told only part of the story. The part that made her look like a spy, a threat, someone who'd infiltrated his home for money. Asterisk, if only he knew the whole truth. If only I could tell him why those papers exist without destroying him completely. Asterisk. Michael, those reports aren't what you think. Aren't they? Michael's laugh was bitter, broken. Elena, I opened my home to you. I let you become the most important person in Lily's life after her mother died. I let myself believe that you cared about us, that you were here because you wanted to be. Elena watched the man who'd become everything to her. This brilliant, wounded father who'd hired her to help his daughter heal from losing her mother, transform into someone cold and unreachable. I do care about you. Both of you. More than you'll ever know. Then why? Michael held up the papers, his successful businessman composure finally cracking. Why have you been filing reports about my daughter's emotional state with some agency I've never heard of? Why does someone named Sarah Chun have detailed information about Lily's nightmares, her progress in therapy, her relationship with me? Elena felt the room spinning around her as 3 years of careful lies unraveled in real time. She'd known this moment would come eventually, had prepared for it, dreaded it, hoped she could prevent it. But standing here watching Michael's trust in her die was worse than any scenario she'd imagined. Because, Elena said quietly, Sarah Chin needed to know that Lily was safe. Who the hell is Sarah Chin? Elena looked at this man she loved, at the father who'd done everything possible to help his daughter heal from trauma, at the person whose world she was about to destroy with the truth he'd been searching for. Sarah Chun is Lily's biological mother. The words hit the room like an explosion. Elena watched Michael's face cycle through confusion, disbelief, and growing horror as the implications of what she'd just revealed began to sink in. That's impossible, Michael whispered. Lily's mother died in a car accident 3 years ago. I was married to Rebecca Sterling. We adopted Lily as a baby. Rebecca died when Lily was 5. Elena felt tears streaming down her face as she realized there was no way to reveal the truth without destroying everything Michael believed about his life, his marriage, and his daughter. Michael, Rebecca Sterling was never Lily's adoptive mother. What are you talking about? Elena moved closer, her heart breaking for the pain she was about to cause. Rebecca Sterling was Lily's biological aunt. Sarah Chun, Lily's real mother, asked Rebecca to take care of Lily when Sarah was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Michael staggered backward as if Elena had physically struck him. You're lying. I'm not lying. Michael, Rebecca never told you that Lily wasn't legally adopted. She never told you that Lily's biological mother was still alive when you got married. Elena watched understanding dawn on Michael's face with devastating clarity. Sarah Chun survived her cancer diagnosis. She's been alive for the past 3 years, watching her daughter be raised by a man who doesn't know she exists. Michael sank into Lily's desk chair, the adoption papers falling from nerveless fingers. Rebecca lied to me. Rebecca was trying to protect everyone. Sarah was supposed to die, Michael. The doctors gave her 6 months. Rebecca promised to raise Lily and never tell her about her biological mother, so Lily wouldn't have to grieve twice. But Sarah didn't die. Sarah didn't die. And for 3 years, she's been in remission, watching her daughter grow up with a family that thinks she's dead. Michael looked up at Elena with an expression that combined betrayal, confusion, and growing anger. And you've been her spy. I've been her eyes and ears, yes. Michael, Sarah hired me to make sure Lily was happy, healthy, loved. She's never wanted to disrupt Lily's life or your family. Then why reveal this now? Why are you telling me this? Elena felt the weight of secrets she'd been carrying for 3 years crushing down on her. Because Sarah's cancer is back. She's dying, Michael. For real this time. And she wants to meet her daughter before she dies. The revelation hit Michael like a physical blow. Elena could see him processing the impossible situation. That the child he'd raised and loved for 3 years had a biological mother who was alive, dying, and wanted to meet the daughter who didn't know she existed. How long? Michael asked quietly. The doctors say maybe 6 weeks. Michael was quiet for a long moment, staring at the adoption papers scattered on Lily's floor. When he looked up at Elena, his expression had shifted to something she'd never seen before. Not anger or betrayal, but a kind of terrible sadness. Elena, do you understand what you've just told me? I think so. You've told me that my marriage was built on lies. That my daughter has a biological mother who's been alive this entire time. That you've been reporting on our family to a stranger for 3 years. Michael's voice was getting stronger, more controlled. And that I now have to decide whether to destroy my 8-year-old daughter's sense of security by introducing her to a dying woman she's never heard of. Elena felt the complexity of the situation crushing her spirit. Michael, I know how this looks. How it looks. Michael stood up, his business executive composure returning as he faced the crisis. Elena, how it looks is that everyone in my daughter's life has been lying to her. Her aunt, who she thought was her mother. Her nanny, who she trusts completely. And now her biological mother, who she doesn't even know exists. Elena watched Michael transform into the man who'd built $1 billion company through decisive action and strategic thinking. But she also knew that no amount of business acumen could solve the emotional complexity of what they were facing. What are you going to do? Elena asked. Michael was quiet for a long moment, looking around Lily's bedroom, the space where he'd read bedtime stories, comforted nightmares, and watched his daughter slowly heal from losing the only mother she'd ever known. I'm going to meet Sarah Chun, he said finally. Elena felt her heart stop. Michael, are you sure? I'm sure that my daughter deserves to know the truth about where she comes from. I'm sure that a dying woman deserves to meet the child she gave up to save. And I'm sure that I need to understand exactly how many lies my life has been built on. Michael moved toward the door, then paused to look back at Elena. But Elena, I need you to understand something. When I meet Sarah Chun, when I decide what's best for Lily, I'll be making those decisions without input from the woman who's been lying to me for 3 years. The words hit Elena like ice water. Michael, I know you're angry. I'm not angry, Elena. I'm devastated. There's a difference. Michael looked at her with an expression that combined love, loss, and the terrible certainty that everything between them had changed forever. I'm devastated that the woman I've fallen in love with has been working for someone else the entire time I've known her. I'm devastated that my daughter's whole sense of family is about to be destroyed. And I'm devastated that I have to choose between protecting Lily from the truth and denying a dying woman the chance to meet her child. Elena felt the room spinning as she realized that Michael had just admitted he was in love with her in the same breath as saying he could never trust her again. Michael, Elena, I want you to call Sarah Chun. Tell her I'll meet with her tomorrow. But I also want you to start looking for another job. You're firing me? Michael's expression softened slightly, revealing the man who'd become her everything underneath the wounded businessman who was protecting his daughter. I'm releasing you from the impossible position of serving 2 masters. Elena, you can't be loyal to both Sarah Chun and to Lily. And after 3 years of trying to serve both, it's time for you to choose. As Michael left the room, Elena stood alone in Lily's bedroom, surrounded by toys and books and drawings that represented 3 years of loving a child whose biological mother had been paying her to ensure that love was real. The woman who'd entered this house as a nanny hired to help a grieving child had become someone who held the power to either reunite a dying mother with her daughter or protect a fragile family from a truth that could destroy them. But the man she'd fallen in love with had just made it clear that whatever choice she made, it would be a choice that excluded him from her future. Elena picked up the scattered adoption papers, seeing her own handwriting in the margins. Notes about Lily's progress, her happiness, her adjustment to life with Michael. 3 years of reports to a woman who'd given up everything to ensure her daughter's happiness. 3 years of love for a man who'd just learned that love was built on the foundation of professional deception. And now, one choice that would determine whether truth was more important than the family that had grown from lies. Elena looked around Lily's room one more time, memorizing details of a life she was about to lose, and wondered if doing the right thing had ever felt more like destroying everything that mattered. The choice Michael had mentioned wasn't just Elena's to make. It was a choice that would determine whether love could survive the revelation of truth, or whether some secrets were too big for any family to bear. Elena spent the night sitting in her small apartment above the Sterling Estate's garage, staring at photos that told the story of 3 years she'd never be able to explain to Michael. Pictures of Lily's first day of school, family dinners where Elena had been welcomed as more than hired help, quiet moments when she documented a child's healing for a mother who couldn't be there to witness it. Her phone rang at 6 a.m. Sarah Chen's name appeared on the screen, and Elena felt the familiar weight of divided loyalties that had defined her entire employment. Elena, I got your message. He knows. He knows everything. Sarah, he wants to meet with you today. The silence on the other end of the line stretched long enough for Elena to imagine Sarah processing the implications. That after 3 years of secret observation, the moment she dreaded and hoped for had finally arrived. How angry is he? Elena thought about Michael's expression, the way his love for her had died in real time as he'd processed her betrayal. He's devastated. Sarah, he's not just angry about the lies. He's terrified of what this will do to Lily. And you? How are you handling this? Elena felt tears threaten as she realized Sarah was the only person who understood the impossible position she'd been in for 3 years. I'm in love with him. Sarah, I fell in love with Michael Sterling, and now he'll never trust me again. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Elena, I need you to understand something. When I hired you 3 years ago, when I asked you to watch over Lily and report on her well-being, I never intended for you to sacrifice your own happiness. But that's what happened. That's what happened because I was too much of a coward to face Michael Sterling myself. Elena, I've been hiding behind your reports, living vicariously through your observations, avoiding the difficult conversation that should have happened years ago. Elena felt something shift in her understanding of the situation. Sarah, why didn't you contact Michael directly when you survived the cancer? Because Rebecca made me promise that I would never disrupt Lily's life unless I was dying. And for 3 years, I wasn't dying. I was in remission, watching my daughter thrive with a family that loved her. But you were also watching me fall in love with the man raising your daughter. Yes. And Elena, that's when I realized I'd made a terrible mistake. Elena felt her phone buzzing with an incoming call. Michael's name appeared on the screen, and she felt her heart race with hope and terror. Sarah, I have to go. Michael's calling. Elena, before you answer, tell him I'll meet him wherever he wants, whenever he wants. But also tell him that the choice about Lily is his to make. I won't force a meeting with my daughter if he thinks it will hurt her. Elena answered Michael's call, surprised by the steadiness of his voice. Elena, I've been thinking about our conversation all night. I need to ask you some questions, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course. When you applied for the nanny position, when you interviewed with me and Rebecca, was any of that real? Elena felt her heart break at the vulnerability in his voice. Michael, everything about caring for Lily was real. Everything about falling in love with both of you was real. But you were hired by Sarah Chen before you ever met us. Yes. Sarah found out that Rebecca was looking for a nanny to help Lily process grief. She asked me to apply for the position. You're professionally trained in child psychology? Elena hesitated, knowing that her next answer would reveal another layer of deception. Michael, I have a PhD in child development and trauma therapy. I specialize in helping children process loss and attachment issues. The silence that followed was deafening. Elena realized that Michael was processing the fact that she wasn't just a nanny who'd been reporting to Sarah Chen. She was a trained professional who'd been conducting psychological evaluation of his daughter for 3 years. Elena, have you been treating Lily? Have you been providing therapy without my knowledge? I've been using therapeutic techniques to help her process Rebecca's death, yes. But Michael, everything I did was designed to help her heal, not to manipulate her or extract information. Did Sarah Chen ask you to provide psychological evaluation of my parenting? The question hit Elena like a physical blow. Michael, that's not. Answer the question. Did Sarah Chen want to know if I was a good father to her daughter? Elena felt the complexity of her position crushing down on her. Sarah wanted to know that Lily was happy, healthy, and loved. She wanted to know that you were providing emotional support and stability. That's not what I asked. Elena realized that Michael's business instincts were cutting through her careful explanations to the core issue. Yes. Sarah wanted to know if you were a good father. She wanted to know if Lily would be better off with her biological family. And what did you report? I reported that Lily loves you completely, that you've been an extraordinary father, that removing her from your home would be devastating to her emotional development. Elena could hear Michael breathing on the other end of the line, processing information that recontextualized 3 years of family life. Elena, I need to ask you something else. When Rebecca was dying, when she was in the hospital for those final weeks, did you know who Lily's biological mother was? Elena felt ice form in her stomach. Michael, what do you mean? I mean that Rebecca spent her final weeks insisting that I hire you specifically. She said you were the only nanny candidate who understood Lily's particular needs. Did Rebecca know you were working for Sarah Chen? The question revealed a possibility Elena had never considered. If Rebecca had known about Sarah's arrangement with Elena, if Rebecca had deliberately chosen Elena to be Lily's nanny, knowing she would report to Sarah. Michael, I don't know. Rebecca never told me she knew about my connection to Sarah. But it's possible that Rebecca orchestrated this entire situation. That she chose you as Lily's nanny specifically because you were Sarah's representative. Elena felt her understanding of the past 3 years shifting once again. Michael, if that's true, if Rebecca knew. If Rebecca knew, then she spent her final weeks ensuring that Sarah would have access to information about Lily without disrupting our family structure. Elena, Rebecca might have been protecting everyone. Me from the knowledge that would complicate my relationship with Lily, Lily from the confusion of having multiple mother figures, and Sarah from the guilt of abandoning her daughter. The complexity of what Michael was suggesting made Elena's head spin. You think Rebecca planned for me to be Sarah's eyes and ears, while also being Lily's caregiver. I think Rebecca was a lot smarter and more compassionate than either of us realized. Elena, when can I meet Sarah Chen? Elena felt hope surge in her chest. She said whenever you want, wherever you want. Michael, she also said the choice about Lily is yours to make. She won't force a meeting if you think it will hurt her. Tell Sarah I'll meet her at 2 p.m. today. The coffee shop on 5th Street, the one where you take Lily for hot chocolate sometimes. Elena felt her heart stop. You know about our hot chocolate trips? Elena, I know about everything you and Lily do together. I've known for months that you take her for special outings, that you've been helping her process emotions she can't articulate, that you've become the most important person in her life after me. You've been watching us? I've been watching you help my daughter heal from trauma I couldn't fix myself. Elena, I've been falling in love with you for 2 years, watching you love Lily the way a mother would love her. The admission hit Elena like sunlight through storm clouds. Michael, Elena, here's what I can't figure out. If you're professionally trained to help children process loss, if you've been using therapeutic techniques with Lily, if you've been reporting to Sarah Chen about Lily's emotional development, why didn't you tell me that Lily was ready to learn the truth about her biological mother? The question revealed the central conflict Elena had been avoiding for months. Because I wasn't sure what the truth would do to her relationship with you. Meaning that Lily might want a relationship with her biological mother. And Michael, that might change how she feels about you, about our family, about everything you've built together. Michael was quiet for a long moment. Elena, do you think Lily would be happier knowing about Sarah? Elena felt the weight of professional training and personal love warring in her chest. I think Lily deserves to know where she comes from. But Michael, I also think she's created an entire identity around being your daughter. Learning about Sarah could either complete her sense of self or completely destabilize it. And there's no way to know which until we try. There's no way to know which until we try. Elena could hear Michael moving around, probably getting ready for a day that would change everything for their family. Elena, I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need you to be at the coffee shop today when I meet Sarah. I need Lily's advocate there, the person who knows her better than anyone. Elena felt confusion and hope warring in her chest. Michael, you fired me last night. I released you from serving 2 masters. But Elena, I still need you to serve Lily's best interests. And right now, that means helping me figure out if meeting her biological mother will help her or hurt her. Are you asking me to come as a professional consultant? I'm asking you to come as the woman who loves my daughter and has been protecting her emotional well-being for 3 years. Elena felt tears streaming down her face as she realized that Michael was still trusting her with the most important decision he'd ever had to make. Michael, what happens after today? After you meet Sarah? After you decide whether Lily should know about her biological mother? Michael was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, Elena. But I know that whatever happens, it has to be what's best for Lily. And us? What happens to us? Elena could hear the pain in Michael's voice when he answered. Elena, I love you. I've loved you for 2 years, and I'll probably love you for the rest of my life. But I don't know if I can build a relationship with someone whose professional obligations might conflict with our family's interests. The words hit Elena like a physical blow, but she also understood the impossible position Michael was in. I understand. Do you? Because Elena, if Sarah Chin becomes part of Lily's life, if Lily develops a relationship with her biological mother, I need to know that you're advocating for Lily's emotional health, not for Sarah's desire for connection. Elena realized that Michael was asking her to choose sides in a situation where everyone's interests were legitimate, but potentially conflicting. Michael, what if what's best for Lily includes having a relationship with her biological mother? Then I'll support that relationship, even if it changes everything about our family dynamic. And what if what's best for Lily is protecting her from the confusion and potential loss of meeting a dying woman she's never known? Then I'll explain to Sarah Chun why she can't meet her daughter, and I'll live with the consequences of that decision. Elena felt the weight of impossible choices settling on her shoulders. Michael, either choice could be devastating. Yes. But Elena, that's what loving someone means. Sometimes you have to make devastating choices to protect them from even worse devastation. As Elena hung up the phone, she realized that the next few hours would determine not just whether a dying mother got to meet her daughter, but whether love could survive the revelation of truth, whether families could be rebuilt around honesty instead of protective lies, and whether Elena Martinez, trained child psychologist, professional nanny, and woman hopelessly in love with the wrong man at the wrong time, was strong enough to put a child's welfare above her own heart when those interests might be mutually exclusive. Looking at photos of Lily's smiling face, Elena realized that some choices were too important for the people making them to survive intact. The question was whether Michael Sterling was strong enough to make the right choice for his daughter, even if it meant losing the life he'd built around loving her. Michael arrived at the coffee shop 20 minutes early, needing time to process what he was about to do. 3 years of believing his wife had told him everything about Lily's background was about to be tested by a conversation with a woman who should have been dead. Elena appeared at 1:45, looking like she hadn't slept. She chose a table near the window where she could watch for Sarah while staying close enough to provide support if Michael needed it. How are you holding up? Elena asked, studying his face with the professional attention he'd grown to love and now realized was partially calculated. I keep thinking about Rebecca's final weeks, Michael said. Elena, she insisted on personally interviewing you. She said Lily needed someone who understood trauma, someone who could help her process complex emotions. Michael, I think Rebecca knew exactly what she was doing. I think Rebecca was protecting everyone from a truth she thought would destroy our family. At exactly 2 p.m., a woman in her late 30s entered the coffee shop, moving carefully as if every step caused pain. Michael recognized her immediately from Elena's description, but seeing Sarah Chin in person hit him with unexpected emotional force. She looked like Lily, the same dark hair, the same intelligent eyes, the same delicate bone structure that Michael had assumed came from Rebecca's side of the family. Michael Sterling? Sarah approached their table with visible nervousness. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Michael stood, offering his hand with the professional courtesy that had carried him through countless difficult business negotiations. But shaking hands with his daughter's biological mother felt nothing like a business meeting. Sarah, please sit down. Elena shifted to make room, creating a triangle that felt both intimate and formal. Michael could see Sarah studying Elena with gratitude and something that looked like maternal concern. Elena has been taking excellent care of Lily, Sarah said softly. Her reports have been, they've been the only thing keeping me sane for 3 years. Michael felt the familiar stab of betrayal, but also growing understanding. Sarah, I need to ask you some direct questions, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course. Why didn't you contact me when you survived the cancer diagnosis? Sarah was quiet for a moment, clearly choosing her words carefully. Because Rebecca made me promise that I would only disrupt Lily's life if I was dying again. And because I was terrified that you'd take her away from me completely if you knew I was alive. Take her away from you? Michael, legally, you have no rights to Lily. Rebecca never formally adopted her. She was caring for Lily as my designated guardian, but when Rebecca died, Lily should have come back to me. The words hit Michael like ice water. What are you saying? I'm saying that for 3 years, you've been raising my daughter without any legal authority to do so. I never terminated my parental rights. I never signed adoption papers. I let you continue caring for Lily because Elena's reports convinced me that you love her and she's thriving. Elena was watching this conversation with growing alarm. Sarah, you never told me about the legal situation, because I didn't want you to worry about it. Elena, I've been content to let Michael raise Lily because she's happy and healthy. But now that I'm dying, I need to make sure there are legal protections in place for everyone. Michael felt his entire world shifting. Are you saying you could legally take Lily away from me right now? I'm saying I could try. But Michael, that's not what I want. What I want is to ensure that when I die, Lily remains with the family that's been loving her. But there's something else, isn't there? Elena asked, her professional instincts clearly detecting layers to Sarah's story. Sarah looked directly at Michael, her expression shifting to something that looked like dread. There's something else. Something Rebecca didn't know when she agreed to care for Lily. Michael felt familiar anxiety spike in his chest. What kind of something? Lily has a genetic condition, a rare metabolic disorder that doesn't typically present symptoms until around age 9 or 10. The words hit the table like a bomb. Michael felt his protective instincts flare as he processed what Sarah was telling him. What kind of condition? It's called hereditary fructose intolerance. Without proper dietary management, it can cause liver damage, kidney problems, and developmental delays. Michael, Lily will start showing symptoms within the next year. Elena was leaning forward intently. Sarah, does Lily show any signs now? She's been getting tired more easily lately, hasn't she? Some mild stomach issues that seem random? Those are early indicators. Michael felt panic rising in his throat as he remembered Lily's recent complaints about feeling tired after school, her decreased appetite, her unusual need for afternoon naps. Why didn't you tell me this earlier? Michael demanded. Because I was hoping the condition wouldn't manifest. Because I was praying that Lily had inherited her father's metabolism instead of mine. Sarah's voice was breaking with emotion. But Michael, my medical team has been monitoring her through Elena's reports, and the symptoms are beginning. Elena looked stricken. Sarah, the dietary information I've been reporting, you've been using it to track Lily's reaction to different foods? I've been watching for the metabolic signs that would indicate the condition was activating. Elena, those detailed meal reports you've been sending, they've been medical monitoring disguised as general health updates. Michael realized that Elena had been unknowingly conducting medical surveillance of his daughter for months. What does this mean for Lily's treatment? It means she needs immediate dietary changes and regular medical monitoring. It means she needs to know about her genetic history, so she can make informed health decisions as she grows up. Sarah paused, clearly gathering courage for her next statement. And it means she needs to meet me before I die, because I'm the only person who understands how to manage this condition. The complexity of the situation was overwhelming. Michael realized that Sarah wasn't just a dying mother who wanted to meet her daughter. She was a medical resource that Lily might need to survive. Sarah, how long have you known about Lily's symptoms? 6 weeks. Michael, that's why I asked Elena to tell you the truth now. I'm not just dying. I'm running out of time to teach Lily how to manage a condition that could kill her if it's not properly controlled. Elena was staring at Sarah with growing understanding and horror. Sarah, you've been having me monitor Lily's health while telling me it was general well-being reporting. I've been trying to protect everyone while ensuring Lily's medical needs would be met. Elena, if I had told you this was medical monitoring, you would have insisted that Michael be informed immediately. Because he should have been informed immediately. Michael felt anger and gratitude warring in his chest. Sarah, my daughter has a potentially dangerous medical condition, and you've been monitoring it secretly for months? I've been ensuring that she receives appropriate medical care, while her legal guardian remained unaware of her genetic risks. I'm not her legal guardian. Michael's voice was rising, drawing attention from other coffee shop patrons. You just told me I have no legal rights to the child I've been raising for 3 years. Michael, please keep your voice down, Elena said urgently, glancing around the coffee shop. But it was too late. Through the window, Michael could see a familiar small figure approaching the coffee shop entrance. Lily, still in her school uniform, carrying her backpack, looking through the window with curious confusion at seeing her father, Nanny, and a strange woman sitting together. Oh God, Elena whispered. She must have followed me from school. Sarah was staring at Lily with an expression of pure love and devastating recognition. She's beautiful. She looks exactly like her father. Michael felt his world completing its collapse as he realized that his 8-year-old daughter was about to walk into a conversation that would change her understanding of her entire family. Elena, can you? But Lily was already pushing through the coffee shop door, approaching their table with the fearless curiosity that Michael had always loved about her. Daddy! Elena? What are you doing here? Lily looked at Sarah with polite interest. Who's your friend? Michael felt time slowing down as he realized that the moment he'd hoped to prepare for, the conversation he'd wanted to plan carefully, was about to happen in a public coffee shop with no preparation and no control. Sarah was looking at her daughter with tears streaming down her face, clearly fighting every maternal instinct to reach out and touch the child she'd been watching from afar for 3 years. Lily, Michael said carefully, this is Sarah. She's someone who knew your mother, Rebecca. Lily tilted her head with the intelligent assessment that had always reminded Michael of Rebecca. But now he realized it might have reminded him of Rebecca because Lily looked like Sarah, and Sarah had reminded Rebecca of someone she loved. Hi, Sarah, Lily said politely. Did you know my mommy well? Sarah looked at Michael, clearly seeking permission to answer honestly. Michael realized that whatever he said next would determine whether Lily learned the truth in a controlled, supportive environment or discovered it through accidental revelation. Lily, Sarah said gently, I knew your mommy very well. In fact, I have some important things to tell you about your family that might help you understand some things about yourself. Elena was watching this conversation with professional alarm and personal heartbreak. Michael could see her recognizing that Lily was about to learn information that would fundamentally change her sense of identity and family. What kind of things? Lily asked, her natural curiosity overriding any sense of caution. Michael looked at Sarah, at Elena, at his daughter who was standing on the edge of learning that everything she thought she knew about her origins was more complicated than an 8-year-old should have to process. Lily, Michael said, making a choice that felt like jumping off a cliff. Sarah has some very important information about your health and about your family that we need to discuss together. Am I sick? Lily asked, her matter-of-fact tone revealing the resilience that had carried her through losing Rebecca. You're not sick exactly, Sarah said carefully, but you might need to make some changes to what you eat to stay healthy. And Lily, there are some things about your family that are more complicated than you've been told. Lily looked around the table at 3 adults who were clearly dealing with something serious and complex. Is this about why I've been feeling tired lately? The question revealed that Lily was more aware of her symptoms than any of them had realized. Yes, sweetheart, Michael said, making the irrevocable choice to trust this moment instead of trying to control it. Sarah knows some things about your health that might help you feel better. And about my family? Michael looked at Sarah, seeing his daughter's biological mother struggling with 3 years of love, loss, and the desperate desire to protect a child she'd only known through reports. Lily, Sarah said softly, how would you feel about learning that your family is bigger than you thought? Lily considered this with the seriousness that had always amazed Michael. Would learning about my bigger family change anything about Daddy and Elena? The question hit all 3 adults with devastating accuracy. Lily, with 8-year-old wisdom, had identified the central fear that none of them had articulated. No, sweetheart, Michael said firmly. Learning about your bigger family would never change how much Daddy loves you or how important Elena is to us. But it might change how you understand where you come from, Elena added gently, and it might help you stay healthy as you grow up. Lily looked directly at Sarah with an intensity that made Sarah's breath catch. Are you part of my bigger family? Sarah looked at Michael, clearly asking permission for complete honesty. Michael realized that protecting Lily from the truth was no longer possible, and that the choice now was between controlled revelation and chaotic discovery. Yes, Michael said, taking his daughter's hand. Sarah is a very important part of your bigger family. And Lily, she has some things to tell you that are going to help you understand yourself better. But as the words left his mouth, Michael realized that this conversation wasn't just about medical information or family revelation. This was the moment when Lily would learn that the adults in her life had been keeping secrets that affected her health and her identity. And depending on how she processed this information, it could either strengthen her trust in the family that loved her or shatter her faith in the people who'd been protecting her. The choice had been made. Now they would all discover whether love was strong enough to survive the revelation of truth, or whether some protections caused more damage than the threats they were designed to prevent. The conversation with Lily lasted 45 minutes, and by the end, Michael felt like he'd aged a decade. His daughter had processed the revelation that Sarah was her biological mother with the remarkable resilience that had carried her through Rebecca's death, but the medical information had clearly frightened her. "So I have to be careful about what I eat forever?" Lily asked, looking between Michael and Sarah with the seriousness of a child trying to understand adult complexities. "It's not forever restrictions," Sarah explained gently. "It's learning to make choices that keep you healthy and strong. Like how Elena taught you to make good choices about bedtime and homework." Elena had been notably quiet during most of the conversation, and Michael could see her struggling with the revelation that she'd been conducting medical monitoring without knowing it. "Daddy," Lily said, tugging on Michael's sleeve, "can Sarah come to dinner tonight? I want to ask her more questions about my health stuff." Michael looked at Sarah, seeing hope and terror warring in her expression. "Sarah, would you like to join us for dinner? I would love that more than anything." As they prepared to leave the coffee shop, Elena's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her face went pale. "Elena, what is it?" Michael asked. "It's Dr. Patricia Wells from Child Protective Services. She wants to meet with you immediately regarding Lily's living situation." The words hit the group like a bomb. Michael felt ice form in his stomach as he realized that someone had reported their family situation to authorities. How would CPS know about any of this? Michael asked. Sarah and Elena exchanged a look that made Michael's blood run cold. "Sarah," Elena said carefully, "did you contact anyone else about this situation? I had to inform my medical team that Lily's symptoms were manifesting. They have professional obligations regarding children with genetic conditions." Michael felt panic rising in his throat. What kind of professional obligations? When a child has a potentially serious medical condition and the legal guardian is unaware of the genetic risks, medical professionals are required to ensure the child receives appropriate care. Even if it means involving social services? Sarah looked stricken. "Michael, I didn't know they would contact CPS. I thought they would just recommend that we have this conversation." Elena was reading a text message, her expression growing more alarmed. "Michael, Dr. Wells wants to meet with you in 1 hour. She's requesting documentation of your legal relationship to Lily." "Documentation I don't have. Documentation that doesn't exist." Lily was listening to this conversation with growing confusion and fear. "Daddy, are the people going to take me away like they did to Jamie in my class?" Michael felt his heart break as he realized his daughter was processing this adult crisis through the lens of childhood fears about family separation. "No one is taking you anywhere, sweetheart," Michael said firmly, pulling Lily closer. "We're going to figure this out together." But Elena was studying her phone with professional concern. "Michael, there's more. Dr. Wells is also requesting an interview with Elena regarding her qualifications and the scope of services she's been providing to Lily." "What does that mean?" "It means they know Elena has been providing psychological services without proper disclosure to you as Lily's guardian. Michael, unlicensed therapy provision can result in criminal charges." Sarah was looking between Michael and Elena with growing horror. "I never meant for this to become a legal crisis." "But it has become a legal crisis," Elena said, her professional training taking over. "Michael, we need legal representation immediately. We need documentation of Lily's medical needs. And we need to prepare for the possibility that CPS might require Lily to be placed in protective custody while the legal situation is resolved." The words hit Michael like a physical blow. They would take her away from me? They would take her away from a man who has no legal rights to her while they investigate whether her medical and psychological needs are being properly met. Michael looked at Lily, who was clearly understanding enough of this conversation to be terrified. "Elena, how long do we have? Dr. Wells wants to meet in an hour. After that meeting, she could make a determination about Lily's immediate safety." Michael's phone rang. The name on the screen made his stomach clench. Rebecca's lawyer, James Morrison. "James? What's going on?" "Michael, I just received a call from Child Protective Services requesting Rebecca's will and any documentation related to Lily's adoption." "Michael, we need to talk immediately." "What kind of documentation?" "The documentation that doesn't exist." "Michael, Rebecca never filed adoption papers for Lily. Legally, you've been caring for a child with no formal guardianship arrangement." Michael felt his world collapsing completely. James, can you meet us at my house in 30 minutes? I'm already on my way. Michael, bring Elena and anyone else who's been involved in Lily's care. We need to prepare for a very difficult conversation with social services. As they left the coffee shop, Michael realized that the careful, private conversation about family truth had exploded into a legal crisis that could destroy everything he'd built with Lily. Elena, he said quietly as they walked to their cars, I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need you to prioritize Lily's emotional well-being over everyone else's interests, including mine. Elena stopped walking, studying his face. Michael, what are you saying? I'm saying that if CPS determines that Lily would be better off with her biological mother, if the legal complications make it impossible for me to continue caring for her, I need you to support whatever decision protects her from trauma. Even if that means losing her? Michael looked at his daughter, who was walking beside Sarah and asking careful questions about her medical condition. Elena, I've had 3 years of loving Lily. If I have to give her up to protect her from legal trauma and ensure she receives proper medical care, then that's what I'll do. Elena felt tears streaming down her face. Michael, you're talking about sacrificing your relationship with Lily to protect her from the chaos this revelation has created. I'm talking about being the kind of father who puts his daughter's needs above his own desires. Sarah appeared beside them, having overheard part of their conversation. Michael, I need you to know something. I never intended for this to separate you from Lily. But it might anyway. But Michael, if CPS determines that Lily needs to be placed with her biological family while the legal situation is resolved, I want you to know that I would never try to exclude you from her life. Elena was studying Sarah's expression with professional attention. Sarah, what aren't you telling us? Sarah was quiet for a moment, clearly weighing how much additional complexity to reveal. There's something else about the legal situation that might affect CPS's decision. Michael felt familiar dread settle in his stomach. What kind of something? Lily's father, her biological father, is still alive, and he's been looking for her for 3 years. The revelation hit the group like an explosion. Michael felt his understanding of the situation shift once again as he realized that Lily didn't just have a biological mother who'd been secretly monitoring her. She had a biological father who'd been actively searching for her. Sarah, you never mentioned a father. Because I was hoping he would never find us. Michael, Lily's father is not a good man. He's the reason I was so desperate to place her with Rebecca. The reason I made Rebecca promise to hide Lily's location. Elena was processing this information with growing alarm. Sarah, if Lily's biological father has been searching for her, if he discovers that she's been located through CPS involvement, then he might petition for custody. And unlike you, Michael, he has legal parental rights that were never terminated. Michael felt the ground disappearing beneath his feet. Are you saying Lily could be placed with a biological father who's dangerous? I'm saying that CPS involvement has just made Lily visible to legal systems that I've been trying to keep her hidden from for 8 years. Elena pulled out her phone, already dialing. Michael, we need more than a lawyer. We need family law specialists, child advocates, and immediate protective measures. But as Elena spoke to emergency legal services, Michael realized that the careful, loving conversation about medical needs and family truth had triggered a cascade of legal complications that could result in Lily being removed from everyone who loved her. Sarah, he said quietly, when you decided to reveal the truth about Lily's parentage, did you anticipate that it might put her in danger from her biological father? Sarah looked stricken. I was hoping that CPS would help us establish legal protections for everyone. I didn't realize that involving medical authorities would trigger investigations that could expose Lily to the exact dangers I've been protecting her from. Michael looked at Lily, who was sitting in Elena's car reading a book, blissfully unaware that her entire future was being decided by adults whose good intentions were creating increasingly complex problems. Elena, he called out, how long until the CPS meeting? 45 minutes. Michael, James Morrison is meeting us at your house, and I've contacted a family law specialist who can join us by phone. And if CPS decides that Lily needs to be removed from my care while the legal situation is resolved? Elena looked at him with an expression that combined professional honesty with personal heartbreak. Then we fight for emergency placement with qualified relatives while ensuring her medical needs are met and her safety is protected. Qualified relatives meaning Sarah? Qualified relatives meaning whoever can demonstrate both legal standing and ability to meet Lily's complex needs. Michael realized that Elena was telling him, as gently as possible, that his 3 years of loving fatherhood might not be enough to maintain custody of a child he had no legal rights to keep. Elena, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Always. If you had to choose between protecting my relationship with Lily and protecting Lily from legal trauma, which would you choose? Elena was quiet for a long moment, clearly struggling between her professional obligations and her personal feelings. Michael, I would choose whatever keeps Lily safe, healthy, and emotionally stable, even if that choice breaks all our hearts. As they drove toward a house that might not be Lily's home much longer, Michael realized that love sometimes required letting go of the people you'd die to protect, and that sometimes the most devastating betrayal came not from deception, but from truth revealed at exactly the wrong moment in exactly the wrong way. Elena's phone buzzed with another message. Michael, James Morrison wants you to know that he's been contacted by someone claiming to be Lily's biological father. Someone who says he's been searching for her since she disappeared 8 years ago. How did he find out about the CPS investigation? CPS investigations are part of public record when they involve parental rights disputes. Michael, whoever Lily's biological father is, he now knows exactly where she is. Michael felt the last pieces of control over his daughter's situation slipping away as he realized that protecting Lily had become infinitely more complicated than any of them had anticipated. The choice was no longer between truth and comfortable lies. It was between multiple forms of potential harm, with no clear path that protected everyone he loved. And somewhere behind them, a man with legal rights to Lily was driving toward a confrontation that could destroy everything Michael had built around loving a child who might never have been his to love. The meeting with James Morrison lasted exactly 12 minutes before everything Michael thought he knew about his life exploded into fragments that would never fit together the same way again. Michael, James said, spreading legal documents across the dining room table while Lily played upstairs. There's something about Rebecca's arrangement with Sarah Chun that I never told you. Elena was sitting beside Michael, her professional composure intact, but her hands trembling slightly as she reviewed CPS documentation. Sarah sat across from them, looking increasingly pale as James revealed information that clearly surprised her as much as anyone. What kind of something? Michael asked, though he was beginning to dread any sentence that started with revelations about things he hadn't been told. Rebecca didn't just agree to care for Lily when Sarah was diagnosed with cancer. Rebecca was being paid to care for Lily. Substantially paid. By someone other than Sarah. The words hit the room like ice water. Elena looked up sharply from her documents, her expression shifting from confusion to something that looked like recognition and horror. James, what are you talking about? Michael demanded. I'm talking about monthly payments of $50,000 deposited into Rebecca's personal account for 3 years. Payments that came from a trust fund established by someone named David Chun. Sarah went white as paper. David Chun is my ex-husband. He's Lily's biological father. The dangerous man you've been hiding Lily from? Elena asked, her voice carefully controlled. The dangerous man who's been funding Lily's care without my knowledge for 8 years. Michael felt his understanding of the situation shift once again. Sarah, you're saying that Lily's father has been financially supporting her even while you've been hiding her from him? I'm saying that David has apparently been manipulating this entire situation from the beginning. Sarah pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages with growing alarm. Michael, I just received a text from David. He says he's been monitoring Lily's situation through multiple sources, and he's on his way here. Elena was staring at Sarah with an expression that made Michael's blood run cold. Sarah, when you hired me to monitor Lily, who gave you my contact information? A placement agency that specialized in trained child psychologists who could work as nannies. What was the name of the agency? Sarah consulted her phone. Chin Family Services. The words hung in the air like poison. Elena's face had gone completely white, and Michael could see her hands shaking as she processed what Sarah had just revealed. Elena, Michael said quietly, please tell me you're not going to say what I think you're going to say. Elena looked at Michael with an expression that combined love, terror, and devastating guilt. Michael, Chin Family Services isn't a placement agency. It's a private investigation firm that specializes in child location and monitoring. What does that mean? It means I wasn't hired by Sarah to monitor Lily's well-being. I was hired by David Chen to locate and monitor his daughter while gathering information about her living situation. The revelation hit Michael like a physical blow. He stared at Elena, The woman he'd fallen in love with, the woman he'd trusted with his daughter's emotional health, the woman who'd become the most important person in their family. You've been working for Lily's father this entire time? I've been providing reports to multiple clients about Lily's welfare. Michael, I thought I was helping ensure that all the adults in Lily's life had access to information about her development. Multiple clients? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Elena was clearly struggling with how much to reveal. Sarah, David, and one other party who claimed to have Lily's best interests at heart. Who was the third party? Michael demanded. Elena looked directly at James Morrison, and Michael felt the last foundation of his world crumble completely. James Morrison requested quarterly reports on Lily's emotional adjustment and your parenting capabilities. James was already standing, moving toward the door with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd been caught in a lie they couldn't explain. Michael, you need to understand that everything we did was designed to protect Lily. Michael's voice was deadly quiet. James, how long have you been coordinating with David Chin? Since before Rebecca died. Michael, David Chin isn't just Lily's biological father. He's a billionaire tech entrepreneur who's been using significant resources to ensure his daughter's safety and well-being. By having me monitored like a criminal? By having Lily's situation monitored to ensure she was receiving appropriate care from someone with no legal rights to provide that care. Michael felt rage and betrayal crushing down on him as he realized that Elena, James, and potentially Sarah had all been reporting on his family to a man who could legally take Lily away from him at any time. Elena, Michael said, turning to face the woman he'd trusted with everything. For 3 years, you've been filing reports about my daughter to her biological father. Reports about my parenting, my relationship with Lily, my fitness as a guardian. Michael, please let me explain. Explain what? Explain how you've been conducting psychological evaluation of my family while pretending to love us? Explain how every intimate moment, every vulnerable conversation, every time I trusted you with my feelings about being Lily's father, you've been documenting it for a man who wants to take her away from me. Elena was crying now, her professional composure completely shattered. Michael, I do love you. I love both of you. But you're right, I've been serving multiple masters, and I've been lying to everyone about the scope of my obligations. Sarah was staring at Elena with growing understanding and horror. Elena, the medical reports you've been sending me, were those going to David as well? The medical information was going to David's pediatric team. Sarah, he's been coordinating Lily's medical care from a distance, ensuring she receives appropriate monitoring for genetic conditions you apparently never told him about. Michael felt the complexity of betrayal and protection warring in his chest. Elena, are you telling me that David Chen has been ensuring Lily receives medical care that I didn't even know she needed? I'm telling you that David has been trying to protect his daughter while respecting the family structure that was keeping her happy and stable. Michael's phone rang. Unknown number, but somehow he knew exactly who was calling. Mr. Sterling? This is David Chen. I believe we need to have a conversation about my daughter. The voice was calm, authoritative, and carried the kind of confidence that came from knowing you held all the cards in a situation where everyone else was scrambling to understand the rules. David Chen, Michael said, putting the call on speaker so everyone could hear. I understand you've been monitoring my family for 3 years. I've been ensuring my daughter's safety while she's been in the care of someone with no legal authority to make decisions about her welfare. And now I'm 10 minutes away from your house, and I think it's time we discuss Lily's future directly. Elena was shaking her head desperately. Michael, don't let him come here. Don't let Lily meet him without proper preparation. Why not? David's voice came through the speaker with calm authority. Elena, you've been reporting that Lily is psychologically stable and emotionally resilient. Surely she can handle meeting her biological father. Sarah grabbed the phone from Michael. David, you cannot just show up and demand access to Lily. She's 8 years old. She just learned that I exist, and she's processing complex medical information. This is not the time for more family revelations. Sarah, you lost the right to make decisions about my daughter's exposure to family complexity when you faked your own death and let another man raise her for 3 years. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. I didn't fake my death. I was supposed to die. But you didn't die. And instead of contacting me when you survived, instead of working with me to ensure Lily knew both her biological parents, you hired investigators to monitor her while keeping me completely excluded from her life. Michael realized that David Chen wasn't just Lily's biological father. He was someone who'd been systematically excluded from his daughter's life by decisions that Sarah and Rebecca had made without his input. "David," Michael said, "what exactly do you want?" "I want to meet my daughter. I want to ensure she receives proper medical care for genetic conditions that require specialized management. And I want to establish a legal custody arrangement that protects her interests while acknowledging the reality that you've been her primary caregiver for 3 years." Elena was watching this conversation with growing professional alarm. "David, CPS is already investigating this family situation. Your arrival could trigger emergency protective custody if they determine Lily is being exposed to too much family instability." "Elena, CPS contacted me this morning. I've been working with them to ensure Lily's transition to appropriate family care happens as smoothly as possible." The words hit Michael like lightning. "You've been working with CPS?" "I've been providing documentation of my parental rights and my financial ability to provide Lily with medical care, educational opportunities, and family stability." Michael felt the walls closing in as he realized that David Chin wasn't just showing up to meet his daughter. He was showing up with legal authority and CPS cooperation to potentially take custody of her. "Elena," Michael said quietly, "I need you to tell me something, and I need you to be completely honest. Anything. In your professional opinion, based on 3 years of observing my relationship with Lily, would she be better off with me or with her biological father?" Elena looked at Michael with an expression that combined professional honesty with personal heartbreak. "Michael, based on my observations, Lily would be devastated to lose you. But she would also benefit from having a relationship with her biological father and access to proper medical care for her genetic condition." "That's not what I asked." Elena was quiet for a long moment, clearly struggling between her professional obligations and her personal feelings. "Michael, if I had to choose between your continued custody and David's legal custody, I would recommend shared custody arrangements that protect Lily's emotional attachment to you while ensuring her medical and legal needs are met by her biological father." The words hit Michael like a death sentence. "You're saying I should give up primary custody?" "I'm saying that Lily's best interests might require legal recognition of David's parental rights while protecting the family relationships she's already formed." Michael looked around the room at Elena, who'd been lying to him for 3 years while genuinely loving his family, Sarah, who'd been protecting Lily from a father who seemed to want what was best for her, and James, who'd been monitoring his parenting on behalf of people he'd never known existed. "Elena," Michael said quietly, "I have one more question." "Yes. Do you love me, or have you been professionally managing my emotional attachment to ensure compliance with whatever custody arrangement David Chin was planning?" The question hung in the air like a weapon. Elena stared at Michael with tears streaming down her face, clearly recognizing that her answer would determine whether any relationship between them could survive the revelation of her deception. "Michael, I love you. I've loved you for 2 years, and watching you be an extraordinary father to Lily has made me love you more every day. But you're right that my professional obligations have compromised my ability to love you honestly. Michael, I can't separate my feelings for you from my responsibility to ensure Lily's welfare, and that conflict of interest has made me a terrible partner and a questionable advocate." Michael felt the last piece of his heart break as he realized that Elena's love, however genuine, was inseparable from professional calculations that would always prioritize Lily's needs over his own. "Elena, when David Chin arrives, I want you to support whatever decision is best for Lily, regardless of how that decision affects me." "Michael, I'm serious. Elena, you've been serving multiple masters for 3 years. For the next hour, I want you to serve only one master, my daughter's best interests." As car doors slammed in the driveway and footsteps approached the front door, Michael realized that his 3 years of loving fatherhood were about to be tested by a man with legal rights, financial resources, and professional documentation of Michael's every parenting decision. The woman he loved would be recommending custody arrangements based on psychological evaluations she'd been conducting without his knowledge. And his daughter would be meeting her biological father, while CPS determined whether the family that had healed her from trauma was stable enough to continue caring for her. Michael Sterling stood in his own home, surrounded by people who'd been lying to him while genuinely trying to protect the child they all loved, facing the possibility that love wasn't enough to maintain custody of a daughter he'd never had legal rights to keep. The question now wasn't whether David Chin was a good father. It was whether Michael Sterling was strong enough to let Lily go if keeping her meant exposing her to legal battles that could damage her more than separation ever could. David Chen entered Michael's home with the quiet confidence of a man accustomed to walking into rooms where everyone else was disadvantaged. He was younger than Michael had expected, maybe 40, with the lean build and sharp eyes of someone who'd built technology empires through relentless focus. But when he saw Lily coming down the stairs, his composed demeanor cracked completely. "She looks exactly like my mother," David said softly, his voice thick with 3 years of suppressed emotion. Lily stopped halfway down the stairs, studying this stranger with the careful assessment she'd developed since Rebecca's death. "Are you the man who's been asking about me?" The question revealed that Lily understood more about the adult complexities swirling around her than any of them had realized. "Yes," David said simply. "I'm your biological father, Lily. I've been looking for you for a very long time." Michael watched his daughter process this information with the resilience that never ceased to amaze him. But he also saw the confusion in her eyes, the way she looked between him and David, as if trying to understand how she could have 2 fathers. "Daddy," Lily said, turning to Michael, "if he's my biological father, what does that make you?" The question hit the room like a blade. Michael felt 8 years of fatherhood distilled into a moment where he had to explain his role in his daughter's life to a child who was discovering that role might not be permanent. "I'm the person who's been your daddy for 3 years, Michael said carefully. "The person who loves you more than anything in the world." "But not my real daddy?" Elena stepped forward, her professional training taking over. "Lily, you can have more than one kind of daddy. Michael is your daddy because he's been taking care of you and loving you. David is your biological father because you were born to him and Sarah." David was studying this interaction with intense focus, clearly assessing the family dynamics he'd been monitoring from a distance. "Lily, I know this is confusing. I want you to know that I don't want to change your relationship with Michael. I just want to have a relationship with you too." But Lily was looking at Michael with growing alarm. "Daddy, are you going to leave me like Mommy Rebecca did?" The question broke Michael's heart completely. "No, sweetheart. I'm never going to leave you. But if David is my real father and Sarah is my real mother, where do you fit?" Michael looked around the room at Elena, who was crying silently, Sarah, who looked stricken with guilt, and David, who was watching this conversation with what appeared to be genuine compassion mixed with determination. "Lily," Michael said, kneeling to her eye level, "families can be bigger and more complicated than we expect. Learning about David and Sarah doesn't make me love you less or make you less important to me. But it might mean I have to choose between families?" The 8-year-old had cut straight to the heart of the issue that all the adults had been dancing around. Michael felt his throat close as he realized his daughter was asking the question he'd been dreading. David moved closer, his voice gentle but firm. "Lily, you shouldn't have to choose between people who love you. But you should have the opportunity to know your biological family and receive medical care that I can provide." "What kind of medical care?" Lily asked, her practical nature taking over. Sarah stepped forward. "Lily, remember what we talked about earlier? About the special diet you might need to stay healthy? David knows more about managing that condition than anyone." Michael watched his daughter process the fact that her biological father could provide medical expertise that he couldn't offer. "Michael," David said, his tone shifting to something more businesslike, "I think we should discuss the practical arrangements while Lily spends some time getting to know me." "I'm not leaving Lily alone with you," Michael said immediately. "I'm not asking you to. I'm asking Elena to supervise our interaction while you and I discuss custody arrangements that serve Lily's best interests." Elena looked between Michael and David, clearly recognizing that she was being asked to choose sides in a situation where her professional obligations conflicted with her personal loyalty. "Elena," Michael said quietly, "I need to know something. When you make your recommendation to CPS about Lily's placement, are you going to recommend that she stay with me or go with David?" Elena was quiet for a long moment, clearly struggling with an answer that would determine the fate of everyone in the room. "Michael, I'm going to recommend whatever custody arrangement provides Lily with emotional stability, medical care, and protection from family trauma." "That's not what I asked. It's the only answer I can give professionally." Michael realized that Elena was refusing to choose between him and David, which meant she was essentially choosing David by default, the biological father with legal rights and medical expertise versus the guardian with no legal standing. "Elena, I need you to be honest with me. If you had to choose right now, if you had to tell CPS whether Lily should stay with me or go with David, What would you say? Elena looked at Michael with tears streaming down her face. Michael, I would say that Lily needs both of you. But if forced to choose primary custody, I would have to consider David's legal rights and medical knowledge. The words hit Michael like a death sentence. You're choosing David. I'm choosing what's legally and medically best for Lily. Even if it destroys her emotionally, even if it breaks all our hearts. Michael felt the last support system collapse as he realized that Elena, the woman he loved, the person who knew Lily better than anyone, was going to recommend against his continued custody. David was watching this conversation with something that looked like genuine sympathy. Michael, I don't want to destroy Lily's relationship with you. I want to establish shared custody that protects both her legal rights and her emotional bonds. Shared custody? I take primary legal custody, ensuring Lily receives proper medical care and inherits appropriate financial security. You maintain regular visitation and continue being her psychological father. Michael felt sick as he realized David was offering him the role of weekend father to a child he'd raised as his own for 3 years. What if I fight this? What if I refuse to agree to shared custody? David's expression shifted to something colder, more businesslike. Michael, you have no legal standing to fight this. Sarah never terminated my parental rights. You never adopted Lily. Legally, you've been caring for my daughter without permission for 3 years. And if I try to maintain custody anyway? Then CPS will be forced to place Lily in foster care while the legal situation is resolved. And Michael, given her medical needs and the family trauma that would result from a custody battle, that placement could become permanent. Michael felt trapped between impossible choices: accept diminished custody or risk losing Lily completely through a legal battle he couldn't win. Elena, he said desperately, you've been observing our family for 3 years. You know how much Lily loves me, how much she needs the stability I provide. How can you recommend breaking up our family? Elena was sobbing now, her professional composure completely shattered. Michael, because I love you both too much to watch you destroy each other in a custody battle that could traumatize Lily permanently. So you're sacrificing my relationship with her to avoid conflict? I'm protecting her from watching the 2 men she loves tear each other apart in court while she gets caught in the middle. Michael realized that Elena was choosing what she thought was the lesser trauma: diminished custody instead of complete separation. Lily was watching this adult conversation with growing distress. Stop fighting about me, she said, her voice rising. I don't want to choose between daddies. I don't want to live somewhere else. I want to stay here with Michael and Elena. The outburst silenced the room. Michael saw his daughter beginning to understand that the adult decisions being made around her might result in losing the family she'd known for 3 years. Lily, Sarah said gently, no one wants to take you away from people you love. But that's what's happening. Lily's 8-year-old logic was cutting through adult rationalizations. You're all talking about where I'm going to live and who's going to take care of me, and nobody's asking me what I want. David knelt down to Lily's level. What do you want, Lily? I want to stay with Michael. I want Elena to be my nanny. I want to have dinner with Sarah sometimes and learn about my medical stuff. And I want you to be my biological father without anyone having to move or change or sign papers that make people sad. The innocence of her solution, that adults should simply cooperate without legal complications, revealed how unnecessary all the adult complexity had become. Michael felt something break open in his chest as he realized his daughter was describing exactly what should happen if love was more important than legal technicalities. David, Michael said quietly, what if we didn't involve lawyers or CPS or custody arrangements? What if we just figured out how to be family together? David was quiet for a moment, clearly calculating the risks and benefits of informal arrangements. Michael, without legal protections, either of us could exclude the other from Lily's life at any time. Do you want to exclude me from Lily's life? No, but I want legal assurance that you won't exclude me either. Michael looked around the room at Elena, who was watching this conversation with desperate hope, Sarah, who was clearly praying that cooperation was possible, and Lily, who was looking between her 2 fathers with love and confusion. Elena, Michael said, if David and I could find a way to share custody informally, if we could both be Lily's fathers without legal battles, would you support that arrangement? Michael, informal arrangements don't provide legal protections for anyone. That's not what I asked. Would you support an arrangement where Lily gets to keep the family she has while adding the family she's discovered? Elena looked at Michael with an expression that combined love, hope, and professional concern. I would support any arrangement that prioritizes Lily's emotional well-being over adult legal anxieties. But before Michael could respond, Elena's phone rang. The name on the screen made everyone in the room go pale. Dr. Patricia Wells, CPS. Elena Martinez? This is Dr. Wells. I'm calling to inform you that based on our investigation, we'll be conducting an emergency home visit tonight to assess Lily's living situation. Mr. Chin has provided documentation suggesting that the current custody arrangement may not be in the child's best interests. The words hit the room like a bomb. Michael realized that while they'd been trying to work out informal arrangements, David had been proceeding with official CPS intervention. David, Michael said, his voice deadly quiet. You called CPS while we were trying to reach a family solution? I called CPS to protect my daughter from a custody situation that has no legal foundation. You called CPS to force me out of Lily's life. I called CPS to ensure that Lily receives proper care from people with legal authority to provide that care. Michael felt betrayal and rage crushing down on him. David, while you were sitting in my living room talking about cooperation and shared custody, you were having social services prepare to remove my daughter from my home. Michael, Lily is not your daughter. She's my daughter, and I'm ensuring she receives appropriate care. The words hit Michael like a physical blow. Elena was staring at David with professional horror, clearly recognizing that he'd been manipulating the situation to ensure the outcome he wanted. David, Elena said, her voice tight with controlled anger. Using CPS as a weapon to force custody arrangements is not in Lily's best interests. Elena, you've been filing reports about Lily's welfare for 3 years. You know better than anyone that this family situation needed official intervention. Michael realized that David had been playing a longer game than any of them had understood. Gathering evidence through Elena's reports, coordinating with James Morrison's monitoring, and positioning himself to take custody through official channels rather than family cooperation. Elena, Michael said quietly, I need you to tell me something honestly. When Dr. Wells interviews you tonight, when she asks for your professional recommendation about Lily's placement, what are you going to say? Elena looked at Michael with an expression that combined love, guilt, and the terrible certainty that she was about to destroy the family she'd helped create. Michael, I'm going to tell Dr. Wells that Lily needs to remain with the primary caregiver who's been providing emotional stability for 3 years while establishing a relationship with her biological father that includes proper medical monitoring. You're going to recommend that she stay with me? I'm going to recommend that she stay with you while David receives visitation rights and medical oversight. David was already standing, his composed demeanor shifting to something colder. Elena, I hope you understand that your recommendation will be weighed against my legal rights and financial ability to provide comprehensive care. David, I hope you understand that traumatizing a child to assert legal rights is not parenting, it's selfishness. Michael watched Elena stand up to David Chun with professional authority and personal courage, knowing that her advocacy for their family would likely cost her the contracts and professional relationships that supported her career. But as Elena defended their family, Michael realized that CPS intervention was no longer a threat. It was already happening, and the outcome would be determined by a social worker who would weigh Elena's psychological assessment against David's legal documentation and financial resources. Elena, Michael said, moving closer to her, whatever happens tonight, whatever Dr. Wells decides about Lily's placement, I need you to know something. What? I love you. I've loved you for 2 years, and even knowing that your professional obligations have compromised our relationship, I would rather love you with complications than lose you completely. Elena looked at Michael with tears streaming down her face. Michael, I love you too. But if tonight goes wrong, if CPS decides that my conflict of interest has compromised Lily's care, I might lose both of you anyway. Michael realized that Elena was facing the possibility that her 3 years of serving multiple masters would result in losing the family she'd been trying to protect. As car doors slammed outside and official footsteps approached the front door, Michael Sterling stood in his own home, holding the woman he loved while facing the possibility that CPS would remove the daughter he'd raised, based on documentation provided by a biological father who'd been monitoring their family for 3 years. The question now wasn't whether love was enough to keep families together. It was whether official intervention could destroy relationships that had survived every other challenge, simply because legal rights mattered more than emotional bonds. Dr. Wells was at the door, carrying paperwork that would determine Lily's future based on adult decisions that had prioritized legal technicalities over a child's emotional needs. And somewhere upstairs, an 8-year-old girl was about to learn that adults who loved her couldn't protect her from systems that valued documentation more than devotion. Michael had 30 seconds to decide whether to fight for custody he'd never legally possessed, or accept that loving Lily meant letting her go to people who could provide legal protections he'd never been able to offer. The choice was no longer his to make, but the consequences would be his to live with for the rest of his life. Dr. Patricia Wells entered the Sterling home with the methodical efficiency of someone who'd witnessed every possible family crisis. She was younger than Michael had expected, with sharp eyes that missed nothing and a demeanor that suggested she'd learned to prioritize children's welfare over adult comfort. "Mr. Sterling, I'm Dr. Wells from Child Protective Services. I need to conduct an immediate assessment of Lily's living situation and interview all adults involved in her care." Michael felt his world narrowing to this moment. Everything he'd built with Lily would be decided by a stranger's professional judgment in the next hour. "Dr. Wells, Lily is upstairs. She's had a very overwhelming day learning about her biological family. I'd appreciate if we could handle this interview carefully. Mr. Sterling, I understand your concern, but this assessment has been triggered by reports suggesting that Lily may be at risk due to irregular custody arrangements and undisclosed medical needs." Elena stepped forward with professional authority. "Dr. Wells, I'm Elena Martinez, Lily's primary caregiver and a licensed child psychologist. I've been documenting Lily's development and emotional well-being for 3 years. Ms. Martinez, I have questions about your dual role as both caregiver and psychological evaluator. That conflict of interest is part of what triggered this investigation." Michael watched Elena's face pale as she realized her efforts to protect Lily had created exactly the professional complications she'd been trying to avoid. "Dr. Wells," David interjected, "I've provided documentation of my parental rights and my ability to provide comprehensive medical care for my daughter's genetic condition." Dr. Wells consulted her tablet. "Mr. Chun, while your parental rights are clear, I need to assess whether immediate custody transfer would be traumatic for the child. Mr. Sterling, can you show me documentation of your legal relationship to Lily?" Michael felt his throat close. "I don't have legal documentation. I've been caring for Lily based on my wife's arrangement with Sarah Chun, but those arrangements weren't formalized. So you've been caring for a child with no legal authority for 3 years? I've been loving and raising a child whose legal guardian asked me to provide that care." Dr. Wells was taking notes with mechanical precision. "Ms. Martinez, in your professional opinion, what would be the psychological impact of removing Lily from Mr. Sterling's care?" Elena looked between Michael and David, clearly recognizing that her answer would determine Lily's immediate future. "Dr. Wells, removing Lily from Michael's care would be devastating to her emotional development. He's been her primary attachment figure since Rebecca's death. However, denying her access to her biological father and proper medical care would also compromise her long-term welfare. So you're recommending?" "I'm recommending a gradual transition that allows Lily to maintain her relationship with Michael while establishing legal custody with David and receiving appropriate medical care." Michael felt something die in his chest as Elena chose what she thought was the least traumatic option: a slow dissolution of his primary role in Lily's life. "Elena," he said quietly, "what does gradual transition mean for someone who's been Lily's father for 3 years?" Elena was crying now, her professional composure completely broken. "Michael, it means you become a very important person in Lily's life who she visits regularly, rather than the person who makes day-to-day decisions about her care. It means I become the weekend father to my own daughter. It means you become a beloved family friend while David becomes her legal guardian." Michael looked around the room at Dr. Wells, who was documenting everything with clinical detachment, David, who was watching with satisfaction mixed with what might have been sympathy, Sarah, who looked stricken with guilt, and Elena, who was sacrificing their family to protect Lily from trauma. "Dr. Wells," Michael said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Of course, if I fight this custody transfer, if I hire lawyers and challenge David's rights in court, what happens to Lily during that legal process?" Dr. Wells consulted her documentation. "Mr. Sterling, if you contest custody while having no legal standing, Lily would likely be placed in emergency foster care while the courts resolve the dispute. Given her medical needs and the family trauma that would result, that placement could extend for months. And what are the chances I'd win a custody battle against her biological father? Realistically? Very low. Mr. Chen has legal rights, financial resources, and can provide medical care you can't access. Michael felt the weight of impossible mathematics crushing down on him. Fight for custody and traumatize Lily with foster care and legal battles he'd likely lose anyway. Accept diminished custody and watch David slowly replace him as Lily's primary father. Dr. Wells, there's a third option, Michael said, surprising everyone in the room. What if I voluntarily relinquish any claim to custody and support David's full legal guardianship? The words hit the room like an explosion. Elena stared at Michael with horror and growing understanding. Michael, what are you saying? I'm saying that if the choice is between traumatizing Lily with custody battles or protecting her from family conflict, I choose protecting her. David was studying Michael with something that looked like respect mixed with confusion. Michael, you'd give up custody completely? I'd give up legal complications that could hurt Lily emotionally. David, if you're willing to ensure that I remain an important part of her life, if you're willing to let her visit me regularly and maintain our relationship, then I'll support your custody petition. Dr. Wells was taking notes rapidly. Mr. Sterling, voluntary relinquishment would eliminate legal obstacles to Mr. Chen's custody while potentially protecting Lily from family trauma. Elena, Michael said, turning to face the woman he loved. In your professional opinion, would voluntary cooperation between David and me be better for Lily than a custody battle? Elena was staring at Michael with an expression that combined love, awe, and heartbreak. Michael, you're talking about sacrificing your legal relationship with Lily to protect her emotional well-being. I'm talking about being the kind of father who puts his daughter's needs above his own desires. But what if David doesn't honor informal visitation arrangements? What if you sacrifice your legal rights and then lose access to Lily completely? Michael looked directly at David. That's a risk I'm willing to take. David was quiet for a long moment, clearly processing Michael's unexpected offer. Michael, why would you trust me to maintain your relationship with Lily? Because the alternative is traumatizing her with legal battles that could destroy her faith in all the adults who claim to love her. Dr. Wells closed her tablet. Gentlemen, if you can reach a voluntary agreement that prioritizes the child's welfare, CPS would support that arrangement over contested custody proceedings. What would that agreement look like? Sarah asked. Mr. Chen would assume legal custody and financial responsibility. Mr. Sterling would maintain regular visitation and continue being Lily's psychological father figure. Ms. Martinez would provide transitional support to ensure Lily's emotional stability during the custody transfer. Michael felt the shape of his future crystallizing. Not the family he'd built, but the family he could preserve through sacrifice. Elena, he said softly, if we do this, if we create a family arrangement that prioritizes Lily's emotional needs over adult legal anxieties, would you be willing to help coordinate that transition? Elena looked at Michael with tears streaming down her face. Michael, you're asking me to help you give up custody of the child you've raised as your own. I'm asking you to help me ensure that Lily keeps all the people who love her instead of losing some of them to legal complications. And us? What happens to us if your role in Lily's life changes completely? Michael moved closer to Elena, taking her hands in his. Elena, for 2 years I've been falling in love with a woman who's been serving multiple masters. Maybe it's time we found out what love looks like when we're both serving only one master, Lily's happiness. Elena was sobbing now, her professional and personal selves finally aligned around a choice that served love instead of legal obligations. David, Michael said, turning to face Lily's biological father, I'm offering you something that no court could give you. A willing partnership in raising your daughter instead of a contested battle for control. David was studying Michael with growing respect. Michael, what do you want in return? I want to remain Lily's daddy in every way except legal paperwork. I want regular time with her, input on major decisions about her welfare, and the assurance that you'll honor the family relationships she's already formed. And if we disagree about her care, then we work it out like family instead of fighting like strangers. Dr. Wells was watching this negotiation with professional interest. Mr. Sterling, you're proposing an informal shared custody arrangement with no legal protections for your interests. I'm proposing that we prioritize Lily's emotional welfare over legal technicalities that could traumatize her. Mr. Chen, are you willing to honor Mr. Sterling's continued role in your daughter's life? David looked around the room at Sarah, who was watching with hope, Elena, who was crying with relief, and Dr. Wells, who was clearly prepared to support any arrangement that protected the child. Michael, David said finally, 3 years ago, when Sarah and Rebecca arranged for you to care for Lily, I was angry that I'd been excluded from decisions about my daughter's life. And now I'm realizing that excluding you from her life would be just as wrong as what was done to me. David paused, clearly choosing his words carefully. Michael, I'll agree to shared custody arrangements that recognize your role as Lily's psychological father while establishing my role as her legal guardian. Dr. Wells smiled for the first time since entering the house. Gentlemen, I think we have the foundation for a custody arrangement that serves everyone's interests. But before anyone could respond, they heard small footsteps on the stairs. Lily appeared in the doorway, clearly having heard enough of the adult conversation to understand what was being decided about her future. Are you making arrangements about me without asking me what I want? She said, her 8-year-old voice carrying surprising authority. Michael felt his heart break as he realized they'd been making decisions about Lily's life while excluding her from the conversation. Lily, we're trying to figure out how to make sure you get to keep all the people who love you, Michael said gently. And what did you decide? David knelt down to Lily's eye level. We decided that I'll be your legal father who makes sure you stay healthy and safe. Michael will continue being your daddy who loves you and takes care of you every day. And everyone will work together to make sure you're happy. Lily considered this with the seriousness that had always amazed Michael. So I get 2 daddies instead of choosing between daddies? Yes. And Elena stays my nanny? Elena looked at Michael and David, clearly seeking confirmation that her role would continue despite the custody changes. Elena stays, Michael said firmly. And Sarah visits sometimes to tell me about my medical stuff and my family history? Sarah visits, David confirmed. Lily looked around the room at all the adults who'd been fighting about her future. And nobody has to go to court or sign papers that make people sad? Dr. Wells stepped forward. Lily, we do need to sign some papers to make sure everyone's role in your family is official. But there'll be papers that make people happy instead of sad. And I get to stay in my room and keep my toys and see my friends at school? Michael felt tears threatening as he realized his sacrifice had created exactly what Lily needed. Stability with expansion instead of disruption with loss. You get to keep everything that makes you happy while adding new people who love you, Michael said. Lily moved to Michael and hugged him fiercely. Daddy, thank you for not making me choose. Michael held his daughter, breathing in the scent of her hair, memorizing the feeling of being her primary protector, while preparing to share that role with someone who could provide legal securities he'd never been able to offer. Lily, he said softly, I love you more than anything in the world. And sometimes loving someone means making sure they get everything they need, even if it changes how your family works. As Dr. Wells began preparing paperwork for voluntary custody arrangements, as David started discussing medical appointments and school enrollment, as Elena coordinated transitional support that would help Lily adjust to expanded family, Michael realized that he'd just made the most difficult and most loving choice of his life. He'd chosen Lily's emotional welfare over his own legal standing. He'd chosen cooperation over control. He'd chosen to build something bigger than the family he'd known, something that included everyone who loved Lily instead of excluding anyone who threatened his position. But looking at Lily's peaceful expression, at Elena's grateful tears, at David's respectful acknowledgement of his sacrifice, Michael realized that love sometimes required letting go of everything you wanted to protect everything that mattered. The question now wasn't whether he'd made the right choice. It was whether David Chun would honor the trust Michael had placed in him, or whether Michael had just sacrificed his relationship with Lily for promises that might not be kept. Dr. Wells had just finished explaining the voluntary custody paperwork when David's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and his expression shifted to something between confusion and recognition. It's my lawyer, David said, answering the call. David Chun. What do you mean a sealed envelope? From Rebecca Sterling? The words made everyone in the room freeze. Michael felt his heart stop as he processed what David was saying. That Rebecca, who'd been dead for 3 years, had apparently left sealed instructions that were being delivered now, at this exact moment. Yes, I'll accept delivery, David continued. Can you bring it to the Sterling residence immediately? Elena was staring at David with growing understanding. David, how would Rebecca have known to send you something today? I don't know. But my lawyer says she left instructions that this envelope should be delivered to me only if, and when I made contact with Michael Sterling regarding custody of Lily. Sarah had gone completely white. Rebecca left contingency instructions? Apparently she left several sealed envelopes with specific delivery triggers. This one was to be opened only if custody arrangements for Lily ever became a legal issue. Michael felt his understanding of the past 3 years beginning to shift. David, are you saying Rebecca anticipated this exact situation? I'm saying Rebecca was apparently a lot more strategic about Lily's future than any of us realized. Dr. Wells was watching this development with professional interest. Mr. Sterling, were you aware that your wife had made contingency plans regarding Lily's custody? I had no idea Rebecca had planned for anything beyond her own death. Elena was studying Michael's expression with growing alarm. Michael, what if Rebecca knew more about the legal situation than she told you? What do you mean? I mean, what if Rebecca knew that Sarah would survive the cancer? What if she knew that David would eventually find Lily? What if everything that's happened today was part of a plan she made before she died? The possibility hit Michael like lightning. Elena, are you suggesting that Rebecca orchestrated this entire situation? I'm suggesting that Rebecca was a lawyer who specialized in family law. She would have understood the legal complexities of informal custody arrangements better than anyone. David's lawyer arrived within 20 minutes, carrying a sealed envelope with Rebecca's handwriting across the front. To be opened only in the presence of Michael Sterling, David Chun, Sarah Chun, Elena Martinez, and Lily Sterling Chun. The specificity of the names made Michael's stomach clench. She knew all our names. Rebecca knew Elena's name 3 years before we hired her. Elena was staring at the envelope with something approaching terror. Michael, if Rebecca knew my name before the hiring process, then my employment wasn't coincidental. She specifically wanted me to work for your family. Dr. Wells leaned forward with professional curiosity. Mr. Sterling, may I suggest that we open this envelope together? If Mrs. Sterling left instructions regarding Lily's custody, those instructions could significantly impact our arrangements. David handed the envelope to Michael. You should open it. This was your wife's letter. Michael broke the seal with trembling hands, pulling out several pages of Rebecca's familiar handwriting along with what appeared to be legal documents. As he began reading, his face went through shock, amazement, and something approaching awe. Elena, Michael said quietly, Rebecca didn't just know your name. She hired you through a placement agency she created specifically to ensure you would become Lily's caregiver. What? Michael continued reading, his voice growing stronger with each revelation. She says here that she researched your background, your qualifications, your personality profile. Rebecca specifically chose you because she knew you were someone who could love Lily while maintaining professional boundaries that would allow you to transition between different family structures. Elena was staring at Michael with growing horror and amazement. Michael, are you saying Rebecca hired me not just to be Lily's nanny, but to be someone who could help manage custody transitions? I'm saying Rebecca hired you because she knew this day would come. Sarah was crying now, clearly recognizing something in Rebecca's planning that she'd never suspected. Michael, what else does the letter say? Michael looked at the legal documents attached to Rebecca's letter. It says that Rebecca established a trust fund for Lily that requires shared custody between her biological parents and her psychological father, meaning me, in order for Lily to access the funds. David was reading over Michael's shoulder, his expression shifting from confusion to admiration. She made legal provisions that require us to cooperate. There's more, Michael continued. Rebecca writes that she knew Sarah would survive the cancer because she'd been coordinating with Sarah's medical team. She knew David would eventually locate Lily through the financial arrangements. And she knew that when that happened, the only way to protect Lily from custody trauma was to ensure that all the adults involved were people who could work together instead of fighting each other. Elena was processing this information with professional amazement. Rebecca engineered a situation where cooperation was more beneficial than competition. She created a family structure that could expand instead of breaking, Michael confirmed, continuing to read. And Elena, she specifically chose you because your psychological training would help Lily process complex family dynamics, while your professional ethics would prevent you from manipulating those dynamics for personal gain. Dr. Wells was taking notes rapidly. Mr. Sterling, what are the legal implications of Mrs. Sterling's trust fund arrangements? Michael consulted the legal documents. The trust fund provides for Lily's education, medical care, and long-term financial security. But it can only be accessed if custody arrangements include David as legal guardian, me as psychological father, and Sarah as biological mother with visitation rights. And if those arrangements aren't maintained? Then the trust funds are donated to charities supporting children in foster care, and Lily receives only basic inheritance from Rebecca's personal estate. David was studying the trust documents with growing respect for Rebecca's strategic planning. She created financial incentives for family cooperation. She created a situation where fighting over Lily would be financially devastating for everyone involved, while cooperation would be beneficial for Lily, Michael corrected. Sarah was sobbing with what appeared to be relief and amazement. Rebecca knew I was alive. She knew I'd want to be part of Lily's life. And she planned for that instead of trying to prevent it. Elena was reading portions of Rebecca's letter over Michael's shoulder. Michael, there's a section here addressed specifically to me. What does it say? Elena read aloud. Elena, if you're reading this letter, it means that the family arrangement I created for Lily is transitioning to the family arrangement I planned for her. You were chosen not just for your professional qualifications, but because I believed you were someone who could love my husband and daughter while helping them navigate the complex family dynamics that Lily would need to understand as she grew up. The words hit the room like a bomb. Elena stared at the letter, then at Michael, clearly processing the fact that Rebecca had planned for Elena to fall in love with Michael. Rebecca planned for us to fall in love? Elena whispered. Michael found the relevant section and read. Michael will need a partner who understands Lily's complex family history and can support him through the custody transitions that will be necessary for Lily's well-being. Elena was chosen because she has the professional skills to help our family and the personal qualities to become part of our family. Dr. Wells was watching this revelation with fascination. Mrs. Sterling anticipated the emotional as well as legal complexities of this situation. She anticipated everything, Michael said, finding another section of the letter. Rebecca writes that she knew David was a good father who'd been wrongly excluded from Lily's life. She knew Sarah was someone who'd put Lily's welfare above her own desires. She knew I was someone who would prioritize Lily's emotional stability over my own legal standing. David was reading the trust documents with growing amazement. Michael, these financial arrangements provide more than just cooperation incentives. They provide enough funding for Lily to attend any university, receive any medical care, and pursue any opportunities she chooses. Rebecca created a trust fund that turns Lily's complex family situation into a financial advantage. She created a trust fund that ensures Lily benefits from having multiple adults who love her instead of being damaged by custody disputes between those adults. Elena was still processing Rebecca's letter about her role in the family. Michael, Rebecca didn't just plan for us to work together professionally. She planned for us to build a life together. Elena, are you saying Rebecca chose you to be my future wife, as well as Lily's nanny? Elena found the relevant passage and read. If Elena and Michael develop a romantic relationship, as I believe they will, their partnership will provide Lily with stability during family transitions while ensuring that Elena's professional objectivity is balanced by personal investment in Lily's welfare. Michael felt his understanding of the past 3 years completely revolutionize. Rebecca didn't just plan Lily's custody arrangements. She planned our entire family structure. She planned for Lily to have the most comprehensive family support system possible, Elena confirmed, reading more of the letter. Biological parents for identity and medical care, psychological father for emotional stability, extended family for cultural connection, and professional support for psychological development. Dr. Wells closed her notes with something approaching awe. Mrs. Sterling created a family structure that serves every aspect of child development while preventing the conflicts that typically arise in complex custody situations. Lily had been listening to this adult conversation with the intense focus she always brought to important information. So Mommy Rebecca planned for me to have the biggest, most loving family possible? Michael knelt down to Lily's level, feeling overwhelming gratitude for the woman who'd loved them all enough to spend her final months ensuring their future happiness. Yes, sweetheart. Mommy Rebecca loved you so much that she spent her last days making sure you'd always have lots of people to love you and take care of you. And she picked Elena to love us too? She picked Elena because she knew Elena was special enough to love all of us. David was reading the financial documents with professional appreciation. Michael, Rebecca didn't just create a trust fund. She created a family corporation that requires ongoing cooperation to manage Lily's inheritance. What does that mean? It means that you, Sarah, and I will be business partners in managing Lily's financial future. We'll need to make joint decisions about her education, medical care, and other major expenses. Sarah was laughing through tears. Rebecca turned potential custody conflict into required family cooperation. Elena was still processing the letter's personal revelations. Michael, Rebecca includes detailed instructions for how we should handle Lily's questions about family complexity, how we should coordinate between different households, even how we should celebrate holidays together. She wrote a manual for blended family success. She wrote a manual for expanded family success. Rebecca didn't see Lily's multiple family connections as a problem to be managed. She saw them as resources to be coordinated. Dr. Wells stood up, clearly recognizing that her official intervention was no longer needed. Ladies and gentlemen, I've never seen custody arrangements that were this thoroughly planned or this focused on child welfare. Mr. Sterling, your wife created a legal framework that ensures Lily receives the benefits of extended family without the trauma of custody disputes. Michael felt tears streaming down his face as he realized that Rebecca's final gift wasn't just financial security for Lily. It was emotional security for everyone who loved her. David, Michael said, Rebecca's arrangements mean that my sacrifice isn't necessary. The trust fund requires shared custody, which means we're legally required to work together. Michael, your willingness to sacrifice custody demonstrates exactly the kind of character Rebecca believed you had. She planned for you to make that choice because she knew it would prove that her trust in you was justified. Elena was reading the final pages of Rebecca's letter. Michael, there's one more thing. Rebecca's instructions for the trust fund include provisions for Elena's role as family coordinator and psychological support specialist. What kind of provisions? Financial compensation for Elena's services to the family, legal recognition of her role in Lily's care, and formal designation as Lily's advocate in any future family decisions. Michael realized that Rebecca had ensured Elena would never again face the impossible position of serving multiple masters with conflicting interests. Rebecca gave Elena official standing to prioritize Lily's welfare over everyone else's interests, Michael said with growing amazement. She gave Elena the authority to do what she's been trying to do for 3 years: protect Lily while serving her best interests. As Dr. Wells prepared to leave, as David began coordinating the trust fund management, as Sarah planned her integration into Lily's life, Michael realized that Rebecca's strategic planning had transformed what could have been a devastating family crisis into a celebration of expanded love. Elena, Michael said, pulling her close as Lily hugged both of them, Rebecca didn't just plan for us to be together. She planned for us to be happy. She planned for all of us to be happy, Elena corrected, looking around at the family that had been created not by blood or marriage or legal documents, but by love carefully orchestrated by someone who understood that the best families were built by people who chose to work together instead of fighting each other. Michael Sterling stood in his home, holding the woman Rebecca had chosen for him, watching his daughter interact with the biological parents Rebecca had ensured would be part of her life, and realizing that love sometimes looked like strategic planning designed to protect happiness across generations. Rebecca's final letter had revealed that every challenge they'd faced, every revelation that had threatened to destroy their family, had actually been carefully planned steps toward building something stronger and more comprehensive than any of them had imagined possible. The question was no longer whether they could survive the truth about Lily's parentage. The question was whether they were worthy of the love that had planned for their happiness even beyond death. 1 year later, Michael stood in the doorway of Lily's bedroom, watching Elena help his daughter pack for her weekend with David and Sarah. The sight still filled him with complex emotions, but now those emotions were gratitude and wonder rather than fear and loss. "Daddy," Lily called out, holding up 2 books. "Which one should I take to David's house? The one about genetics or the one about family trees?" "Why not both?" Michael suggested, moving into the room that had become a symbol of everything Rebecca had planned perfectly. "David loves talking about science with you, and Sarah enjoys family history stories." Elena smiled at him over Lily's head, the expression carrying a year of shared growth and deepening love. "She's packed enough books to start a library. I think someone's inherited both her biological father's love of learning and her psychological father's tendency to over-prepare." Michael felt the familiar warmth that came from hearing Elena describe their family structure with such natural ease. The professional conflicts that had once torn her apart had been resolved by Rebecca's trust arrangements, leaving space for the relationship they'd both wanted but couldn't risk while serving multiple masters. "Elena, are you coming with us to David's house?" Lily asked, continuing her methodical packing process. "Not this weekend, sweetheart. Your weekend with David and Sarah is special time for just the three of you. But I'll be here when you come home Sunday, and we can work on your science project together." Michael watched this interaction with continuing amazement at how naturally Lily had adapted to her expanded family structure. Weekly dinners with Sarah to discuss family history and medical management. Weekend visits with David for science exploration and father-daughter bonding. Regular life with Michael and Elena for daily stability and emotional security. "Michael," Elena said quietly, "Dr. Chen called this morning with Lily's latest blood work results. Everything normal? Better than normal. Her metabolic markers are perfect. David's specialized meal planning and Sarah's genetic counseling have eliminated all the early symptoms she was developing." Michael felt gratitude wash over him as he realized that accepting shared custody hadn't just preserved his relationship with Lily. It had probably saved her life by ensuring she received medical care he couldn't have provided alone. "Daddy," Lily said, closing her overnight bag with the confidence of a child accustomed to moving between loving homes. "Can I ask you something?" "Always, sweetheart. Are you happy that Mommy Rebecca planned for our family to be so big?" The question hit Michael with the perfect complexity of a child who understood that her current happiness had been purchased through adult sacrifices and strategic planning that began before she was old enough to understand family dynamics. "I'm happy that Rebecca loved us enough to make sure we'd all be taken care of, even after she was gone," Michael said carefully. "Are you happy with how our family works now?" Lily considered this with the seriousness that had always amazed him. "I'm happy that I get to love lots of people, and they all love me back. But sometimes I'm sad that Mommy Rebecca couldn't stay to see how good her plan worked." Elena knelt down to Lily's level. "Lily, what do you think Rebecca would say if she could see our family now?" "I think she'd say that love is bigger when you share it instead of keeping it just for yourself." Michael felt tears threaten as he realized his 9-year-old daughter had articulated the central truth that Rebecca had built their entire family structure around. "I think you're exactly right," Michael said, pulling Lily into a hug that included Elena naturally. "Rebecca's biggest gift was showing us that families can grow bigger and stronger when people choose to work together instead of fighting each other." David's car appeared in the driveway, and Lily ran to the window with excitement that still sometimes made Michael's chest tight with protective instincts he'd learned to channel into support rather than possessiveness. "Elena," Michael said as they walked downstairs together, "there's something I want to ask you." "What?" Michael paused in the hallway, looking at family photos that now included David and Sarah alongside pictures of Rebecca, himself, and Elena. "A year ago, when you were struggling with serving multiple masters, when you were torn between your professional obligations and your personal feelings, did you ever imagine this is how it would resolve?" Elena studied the photos with him, seeing a year of birthday parties, holiday celebrations, school events, and medical appointments that had been coordinated between multiple adults who'd learned to function as an extended family. "Michael, a year ago I thought I was going to lose both you and Lily because I couldn't figure out how to balance competing loyalties. I never imagined that Rebecca had planned a way for everyone to win. And now," Elena turned to face him directly, "now I understand what Rebecca meant when she wrote that love isn't about choosing sides. It's about building something bigger than any individual relationship." Michael moved closer to Elena, taking her hands in his. "Elena Martinez, a year ago I thought you'd betrayed my trust by serving people I didn't know existed. Today I want to ask you something I never thought I'd be brave enough to ask." Elena's eyes widened as Michael knelt down in the hallway of the home they'd built together around loving a child who belonged to multiple families. "Elena, will you marry me? Will you officially become part of the family that Rebecca planned, and we've all built together?" Elena was crying and laughing simultaneously. "Michael Sterling, yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll officially become part of this beautiful, complicated, perfectly planned family." As they kissed in the hallway, Lily came thundering down the stairs with her overnight bag, followed by the sound of David knocking on the front door. "Elena, Daddy, David's here. And he says Sarah's in the car with a surprise for me." Michael opened the door to find David holding a small wrapped package and wearing the expression of someone who'd learned to find joy in shared rather than exclusive fatherhood. "Michael, Elena," David said, "Sarah wanted Lily to have this before our weekend together. It's a jewelry box that belonged to my mother, Lily's great-grandmother. We thought she was old enough to start learning about her extended family history." Michael felt the familiar emotion that came from watching David navigate his role as biological father while respecting the family structures Lily had formed before he entered her life. That's beautiful, David. Lily, what do you say? Thank you, David. Can I open it now? Why don't you open it in the car with Sarah? She has stories to tell you about your great-grandmother that go with the jewelry box. As Lily hugged Michael and Elena goodbye, as she ran excitedly toward the car where Sarah was waiting with historical stories and genetic wisdom, Michael realized that his weekend without Lily no longer felt like loss or separation. It felt like expanded love that gave him space to build his relationship with Elena while ensuring Lily received everything she needed from all the adults who cared about her welfare. Elena, Michael said as they watched the car drive away, Rebecca's letter included one more thing I never told you about. What? Instructions for a wedding. She left detailed plans for a ceremony that would celebrate not just our marriage, but the family we've all built together. Elena stared at Michael with amazement. Rebecca planned our wedding? Rebecca planned our wedding, our honeymoon, and the first 5 years of our marriage. She left suggestions for how to coordinate schedules with David and Sarah, how to handle Lily's questions about family complexity, even how to plan for children of our own while maintaining Lily's special status as our first daughter. Elena was laughing through tears. Michael, Rebecca planned our entire future? Rebecca planned a framework for our future that allows us to build whatever we want while ensuring Lily always has the comprehensive family support she needs. Michael pulled Elena close, looking at their home, the place where 3 years of secrets had exploded into 1 year of truth that had created something more beautiful than any of them had imagined possible. Elena Martinez, soon to be Elena Sterling, do you want to build a life with me using Rebecca's framework, or do you want to create something completely new? Elena looked at the photos covering their hallway, at the calendar coordinating schedules between multiple households, at the evidence of a family that had been planned with such love and strategic wisdom that it had survived every possible challenge. Michael Sterling, I want to build on the foundation Rebecca created while adding our own dreams to the structure she designed. Even if those dreams include more children, more complexity, more coordination between people who love our family? Especially then, Elena said, kissing him with a year of resolved conflicts and unlimited future possibilities. Rebecca taught us that love multiplies when you share it instead of hoarding it. As they stood in their hallway, surrounded by evidence of love that had been strategic enough to plan for happiness across generations, Michael Sterling realized that trust didn't require the absence of secrets. Trust required transparency about why secrets had been kept, honesty about how those secrets served love, and the courage to build something real from the revelation of truth. Rebecca's final gift hadn't been the elimination of complexity from their lives. It had been a roadmap for thriving within complexity while ensuring that love remained the driving force behind every decision. Michael looked at Elena, the woman Rebecca had chosen for him, the partner who'd learned to serve love instead of serving multiple masters, the future wife who understood that their happiness was inseparable from Lily's welfare. Elena, he said softly, what did this story teach you about love, truth, and the courage it takes to build something real from the wreckage of lies? Elena smiled with the wisdom of someone who'd learned to trust strategic love over comfortable deception. It taught me that sometimes the most devastating secrets are actually the most loving preparations. That families aren't just born. They're built by people brave enough to choose cooperation over competition. Michael Sterling had spent 3 years believing his trust had been betrayed by the woman he loved. He'd spent 1 year learning that trust could be even stronger when it was built on complete transparency rather than comfortable assumptions. And he was about to spend the rest of his life discovering what love could build when it was supported by truth, nurtured by strategy, and guided by wisdom that planned for happiness beyond any individual lifetime. The question was no longer whether love could survive the revelation of secrets. The question was how much beauty love could create when it was finally free to build without deception. What did this story teach you about the difference between trust built on ignorance and trust built on transparency, and the possibility that our greatest challenges might actually be carefully planned opportunities for deeper love? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories that will change how you see the world.